It's that time again when we do our monthly wrap up, and I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read this month. A lot of horror and a lot of like fantasy. I've been kind of bouncing back and forth between those two genres. So, the first book I read was the book Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. And this follows the story of this girl, Fern, who ends up going to this home that is for wayward girls, which is for when really young girls get knocked up and are pregnant and their families don't want the embarrassment of having these girls around and all that stuff. So, society looks down on them. The family doesn't want people looking at them and shaking their fingers and, doing what people do. So they go there. And it's a story about finding their inner strength and their inner power. And it's such an emotional and moving and great story. I think it might be one of Grady Hendrix's best books. It is an awesome read. And it's a mild horror. There's witchiness in it and there's magic, but it's on the side of something that's a little more mild. So if you're not into like super heavy horror and you want a really emotional and moving story, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is awesome and I would highly recommend it. I have a standalone review for that. So if you want a little more information on it, I'll have a link down below in the description if you want to check that out. All right, so after that one, I read a lovely cozy fantasy called The Crescent Moon Tea Room by Stacy Sabinsky. And this follows three sisters who, you may have guessed, run a tea room and they tell fortunes by reading people's tea leaves. And so they do quite a good business. They're located in Chicago and they opened this up after the deaths of their parents and they've always just kind of wanted, to stay together, have this business and all that stuff. But as they start to get older and start to grow, the one sister really is coming into her own and writing and starts to write a book and then decides on a whim to kind of send it into a publisher and it gets chosen and they want to publish it and they love it. But she doesn't want to tell her other sisters because she's afraid to that she'll have to go and do a book tour and then be away from them and they don't want that. And so the other sister too, she's starting to come into more of her powers and finding out she's a much more powerful witch, but she's always kind of tried to suppress her magic around her sisters because she didn't want to rise above and be more powerful and have things be awkward, but that's happening with her. And then the other sister has gone to see the circus that was in town and it's kind of starting to fall in love with this trapeze artist that is there. And on top of that, the Witches Council gets a hold of them and they want them to help these three different witches find out what their life task is. And if they don't, the Witches Council is going to close down the tea room. What a bunch of a-holes. So, will they be able to complete their task? Will the sisters be torn apart? What will happen? It's cute. It's cozy. It's just a nice read that, you want to have some sugar cookies and some tea or hot chocolate and sit under a blanket with your best friend who is either a dog or a cat, not a human. No, because they might try to talk to you while you're reading. So, maybe a lizard next to your fish tank. I don't know. If you like cozy fantasy, check that one out. After that, I read a nonfiction book. From time to time, I do like to read. I guess it's self. Is it a self-help book? It's Feel Good Productivity, written by Ali Abdal, who, if you have been around YouTube and have looked up anything about productivity, he's a really big YouTuber that talks about productivity, growth on YouTube, this, that, and the other. And I figured I would pick up his book from the library just because, sometimes can't we all be a little more productive in our workspace and our life space and all that. And so he just has a lot of great tips and tricks, and it's very easy to consume. Sometimes you read a nonfiction and it's boring and it's like listicles and it's this and that and the other. And what I liked about his is that he pulls in other stuff that he likes to do and comparisons of comparing things to when he would play World of Warcraft and video games and this, that, and the other. So it gives it a bit of charm and it's just a good book. If you want to learn more about productivity, would definitely recommend this book. Or if you don't want to read it, just, look him up on YouTube here and he's got a lot of videos. So after that, I read, or I should say reread, Salem's Lot by Stephen King. So I reread this because I had recently finished the Dark Tower series, and Salem's Lot had a huge tie-in with the Dark Tower. So I wanted to go back and reread it, and I hadn't read it in years and years and years. It was the first Stephen King book I ever read, and I was probably 12 or 13 when I read it. So I reread it. I didn't remember anything. Obviously, I knew it was about vampires, but I kept like in my mind kind of guessing like what was gonna happen, and every time I was wrong. I was like, "This is great! It's like a whole new book." Honestly, it still stands up. If you like vampire books, it's pretty awesome. And then also, I found some links, or maybe it was all in my head, but there were some things that I thought were very similar and vibed with the Dark Tower. So I do have a video for my standalone for that, which is basically I said that I found Dark Tower secrets in Salem's Lot, which I found a few that I think tie in. So you can be the judge of that. Maybe it's me just looking for links that maybe aren't there. I don't know. Anyways, I'll have a link to that one down below too if you want to check it out. All right, so after Salem's Lots, I read a very cute little, it's not a fantasy. It's not a well, it's not really a mystery either. It's just a cute little cozy, heartfelt emotional book, and that was The Restaurant of Lost Recipes by Hisashi Kashiwai. This is the second book in the Kamigawa Food Detective series, so I guess maybe you would kind of call it a mystery. So these people will come to this restaurant and they want the proprietors to find certain dishes for them, but it has to be like the dish from a certain time and a place that brings back these memories and whatnot. And so when they do track stuff down, they'll go to the specific town and the little markets and like talk to people to find out like, okay, where did they get the ingredients for this? What was done differently as opposed to having this at this restaurant, and then when they finally come back in for their dish, they kind of walk them through it and paint the picture and the story and reset the scene for the memory. And it's just a very sweet little book. My only complaint with it is that the owner, so it's a father-daughter team that run the Kamigawa Food Diner. The owner is a butthole about the cat that hangs out outside. The cat's name is Drowsy. Everyone else is nice to the cat. They give him rubs and pets, even the daughter. And the dad is like a giant butthole, and he's always like just being mean to the cat. And he's always like, "Don't let that dirtball cat come in here," blah, blah, blah. So I don't like that about it. Not a fan. But otherwise, it's a really cute book. After that, I read The Mask of the Deer Woman by Lori L. Dove, and this follows the subject matter of missing Indigenous women. And it follows this character, Carrie Starr. Her father had lived on the reservation, and he ended up marrying a white woman, and then they moved away. And then the daughter, Carrie, she had come back for a short time when she was younger, but she didn't really remember it. And then, so she ends up getting a job as the marshal years later in life because she was a detective in the city, not on the reservation before, but her daughter died and stuff kind of went south. And so she gets a job on the res. When she first gets there, there is this missing girl, Chenna McLeod, and she's a college student. She'd been out on the res in the field, kind of looking for if there was any rare creatures or thought possibly extinct creatures, because if there are, she will get a grant and then also a job at the Smithsonian. This was also help out the reservation and bring money into the tribe and all of that, but she's gone missing. And at first, Marshall Starr, Gary, she's kind of like, well, she's college age. Maybe she just doesn't want to be found. And she doesn't really take it serious at first. But then she starts finding about all these other missing women that have disappeared from the res. And she starts to take it serious. She grows as a character. And then she hits a point where she's like, if I can save this one woman, I need to do this. And so it's heartfelt, it's emotional, it is a thriller, and it was a really great read. So after that one, we read The House Witch 2 by Hack. Finally. I read the original House Witch like, I don't know, a year ago or more, and I loved it. And I was like, oh, definitely need to read this trilogy. And then I just didn't. And then recently I had made a video about my favorite cozy fantasy books, and I was like, why did I never read that? So I finally picked up the second book. Now I'm going to have to get the third one, and hopefully I don't wait another year before I do that. Who knows? I probably will, because I get so distracted by all the books that are around that I need to read. So we'll see. But anyways, I finally read the second one. It's cute, it's cozy, and I thought it was just as good, if not better, than the first one. It does end on a super cliffhanger. So it follows this house witch, which his name is Finn. He has powers. Lightning is one of his main things. He also can conjure stuff so that it moves and does stuff for him. Like when he's in the kitchen, he can have knives just start chopping up the ingredients and whatnot. So he makes a lot of delicious foods. and all that stuff. But once like the king and queen have found out that he has these powers, and his powers as a house witch only extend to like his house. Well, the castle's pretty big, so he has powers in the castle and like outside on the grounds and whatnot. They're on the verge of war. The king's wife is pregnant. Survival from pregnancy in those times wasn't very good, so it seems like there might be some complications with the pregnancy. And then Finn's mom also comes to the castle as well, and she is also a witch, and she's there to help the mother with the pregnancy and all that stuff. It's just cute. There's also romance in it, and it's one of the nobility, and he's just a chef, so how will they ever be together, and this, that, and the other. But it's cute, it's cozy, despite all the stuff of war and whatnot going on. It's a good witchy read, and I really need to read the next one because it was a very big cliffhanger that it kind of ended on. After that, I read a devilishly deranged book, which was Victorian Psycho by Virginia Faito. Holy bananas! This book is wild. The main character, she is a deranged delight. So she takes this job as a governess to this family, and she has all these murderous impulses. She's also kind of delusional and hears voices, and she likes to lick things, people, children, fingers, dead things, alive things. She likes to bite things, horses' butts, the nose of a calf head that was sitting on a table in the kitchen. She thinks the paintings in the hallway talk to her sometimes. She thinks that babies have full on conversations about her life and how she's horrible and whatnot. So all this stuff's going on in her head. And then, like, the bodies start to pile up, and where it goes, it's a wild little story. Oh boy. It's a wild one. It's a short little novella. If you like deranged, gothic, weird books, definitely check it out. After that, I read The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. Awesome. So far this year, I've read some really excellent horror. This one's going to be probably on my top 10 list. I'm feeling that. The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig is liminal. I love liminal horror. It takes place also in the woods. It follows this group of friends. They're teenagers. They all go camping. What do kids do when they go camping in the woods? You know, drink, drugs, hook up, whatever. So they all go. And when they go to the spot, they find this like staircase in the middle of the woods. And at that point in time, they decide they're not going to climb it or anything. So they make their way, they set up camp, all that good stuff. Then these two, Lore and Maddie, they go off and they're going to go see the vista or whatever. Right? Okay, so they get in a fight. And when they come back, Maddie's pissed. And he's like, I'm going to go climb the staircase. Are you guys coming with me or what? And they're like, no, we don't really want to. Because when they came into that area, they got a really creepy, bad vibe from the staircase. So they all end up going over there anyway. And Maddie runs to the top, and it looks like a portal opens up there, and he jumps off the stairs and then disappears. And then when everyone's not paying attention for like a second and was looking at this way or the other, the staircase disappears. And everyone's like, what the F? And so this has haunted them for like 20 years. Okay, fast forward to the future. One of their friends, Nick, who had never really stopped looking for Maddie, everyone else kind of just stopped and gave up. He emails them and he's like, hey, you guys, I am dying of cancer and I want to see everybody before this takes me down and I'm not able to like get around and all that stuff. So please come visit. I just want to see you guys. Everyone had kind of grown apart and whatnot. And so they all go. They meet at the airport. Driver takes them to their destination. And when they get to their destination expecting a hotel, they're at the woods. And Nick comes walking out. He's like, oh, hey guys. And they're like, what are we doing here? He's like, oh, yeah, we're camping. And they're like, what? No. And he's like, yeah, we used to go camping all the time. So they start trekking through the woods. And at some point, they feel like this weird vibe. It's very disturbing. Something maybe they felt before. And then what do they find? Another staircase in the woods. And now they have to decide, are they going to go up it and try to find Maddie? Well, if they didn't, this book wouldn't be that good. They go up there, and what they find is quite interesting. And it was really good. It's such a good horror book. I loved it. This is my first Chuck Wendig book, so definitely want to read more books by him in the future. Yes. After that one, I read another witchy book, which was The Witches of El Paso by Luis Jaramillo, and it follows the story of Marta and Nina, her great aunt. Great aunt Nina had a kid named Rosa that apparently no one knew about. She tells Marta this. Marta wants to help her find her kid. Only thing is, the kid doesn't exist in this time because Nina has this power called La Vista. And when she was younger and like starting to come into her own, she would have visions and whatnot. But apparently, her powers and herself had reached out across the way, finding other people who also had this power. And this Sister Benedicta one night came and found her, the great aunt, when she was younger, and they walked to this convent. And apparently, when they did this, they walked through time because Nina was from 1943 and the Sister Benedicta was from 1792. And so she goes there and she's there for quite some time. She ends up meeting this boy, falling in love, she gets pregnant, and then when she finally finds a way to get back to her time, the Sister Benedicta kept the baby and then she went back to her time. And so she has to get Marta to believe her, but Marta also is starting to get the same powers that Nina had with this La Vista, with the visions and the strange things. So, but she doesn't really believe it and she suppresses it and pushes it all down. So Nina has to somehow get her to believe so that she can actually help her. Like, you can't search for someone from a different time frame, right? And then together they might be able to open a door to her daughter. So it's a really good book. It's emotional, it's strange, it's liminal. Loved it. All right, after that, I read a romantasy, and that is Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan. This follows the story of Lien. You come into the story, it's action right away. The city in her kingdom where she lives is on fire. The immortals are mad and they're burning stuff down, and they don't really know why. And Lien, she is the next in line to be the Lady of Tianxia, which is the kingdom. But this fire is happening, so her and her grandfather and Aunt Shu and Aunt Shu's adopted son, Cheng Yin, are trying to get the heck out of there. But prior to this, Lien had been poisoned with the waters of this river, which is, they say, the water of death, the Wang Chun. And the Wang Chun has like all the spirits of the dead within it. And so any human that has this won't likely survive. And so the grandfather, who was in charge of the kingdom, he had acquired this lotus that he's supposed to give to the immortal queen Kai Hong, but Lien is dying, and so instead he gifts it to her so that she might live. Now he has to go in front of the immortals and be like, something happened to the lotus. I don't know. So he goes in front of them and he lies and he says, someone stole it. But then he dies of a heart attack. So they couldn't do anything worse to him. So that happens. Lien is insanely angry because of this. Yeah, so they're trying to get the heck out of there and to escape. But also, since she's going to be next in line for this kingdom, like it seems someone's trying to take her out. So you have that threat, you have the immortals and all this stuff going on. It's a beautiful book. It's a wonderful fantasy world to be ensconced in. And then there's the forbidden attraction between Lien and the god of war, the immortal. It is a fun read. I really love this author. I had read her duology of Daughter of the Moon Goddess and Heart of the Sun Warrior. It was absolutely awesome. This book, same addictive writing, like couldn't put it down, and it's absolutely fantastic. Loved it. All right, continuing on in my fantasy worlds, I read the third book in the Emily Wilde trilogy, and that is the Compendium of Lost Tales. And this follows Emily Wilde, our scholarly curmudgeon, and Wendell Bambleby, the king of fairy, at least for the Silva Lupi, who are one of the more dangerous and unhinged sects of fairy. And they're going back to his kingdom to take back the throne after his evil stepmother just wreaked havoc on everything, was a murderous a-hole. The stepmom is somewhere dying, I guess. She was poisoned, and so she is now put a curse on the land. And now they're going to have to deal with that too. So they have to figure out how to break this curse. And it sucks because it's like, oh man, he just took back the throne, and now this stupid woman is still a thorn in their sides. And it's a great story. It's cute, it's cozy. I really like this series. If you like stories about the Fae, that are weird and whimsical, also with a darker edge too, then the Emily Wilde series in general is just really good. The first book is called The Encyclopedia of Fairies. Awesome read, a lot of fun, especially if you like cozy fantasy. It is a good time. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you what my favorite read was out of all of these. There was a lot of good ones. I'm gonna have to choose three. I can't just do one. Definitely Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Amazing read. I adored Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan. And then my absolute favorite is The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. Awesome. Those are my top three favorites out of all those that I read. So, did you guys have any favorites that you read this month that you really liked? Whether fantasy, horror, nonfiction, whatever, let me know. I am always curious to see what you guys are reading. And if you also enjoy videos where I talk about multiple books I am reading or have read, the next video coming up will be about that. So stick around, check it out. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.